Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Eccentric, the makers of the K-Box and the new K-Pulley. Guys, flywheel training's really grown in popularity of late, and although it's something that's been around for a while, the simple reason that it's grown in popularity is because it works. We've been lucky to have a K-Box in our weight room for the past 3 years, and we've seen some really great things when it comes to improving the athlete's ability to change direction, and then looking at our return to play protocols with different lower body injuries with the student athletes. The love-hate relationship that everyone has with the K-Box is now just going to grow more with the addition of the K-Pulley. The ability to do standing presses, pulls, rip-throughs, and knee drive exercises is just going to be another arsenal to our training and another addition to the love-hate relationship that our student athletes have with the awesome tools that come from Eccentric. Go ahead and hop over to eccentric.com today to check out what they have. Guys, I can't recommend it enough, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed, not just with the products, but with the awesome customer service that Eccentric provides. Hey everybody, if you enjoy the podcast and the content that it provides, make sure you hop over and check out the all-new Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is the combination of the CVA SPS community and the Rugby Strength Coach community, bringing you what is sure to be the internet's leading resource for continuing education for strength and conditioning professionals. Combining these two resources has allowed us to bring some of the best content from some of the best minds in the world together for your one-stop shop to better improve the continuing education for not just yourself, but your entire staff. Bringing together all of the lectures from the Rugby Strength Coach community, along with the lectures exclusively done for the Central Virginia Sport Performance community, and all the lectures performed at the Central Virginia Sport Performance Seminar, make this an absolute must for performance coaches around the world. The world-class lectures at the Strength Coach Network are not all that you'll see as well. The discussion in the forums and the support and the career guidance from some of the top practitioners in the world, from people all over the world, makes this an absolute must and a great place for you to network, learn, and grow as a performance professional. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com and use the code CVASPS, that's CVASPS, to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. We're sure you're going to find great value in the Strength Coach Network and are really excited to have you involved. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com and use the code CVASPS to check it out today. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, we are joined by Wofford College's Josh Medler to sit down and to discuss with us his physical preparation program for his football team. Guys, after we go through a quick little background of how Josh got down there to Wofford, he dives right into it. And this is really a cool talk because, Josh is going to talk about really a lot of limiting factors that led them to make the selections into how they are training their football athletes down there at Wofford now. And that leads them right into what the actual program is, what the methods they're using are, where these ideas came from, what types of systems they're running. And then we get into monitoring. And, Josh is in a kind of a unique situation where he's limited a bit budgetarily, and he gets into how they break it all down from lifting to practice and how they're building their monitoring system and have really had some great success with it. Guys, this is really, really an awesome talk. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's get right to it. Josh, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, dude, listen, I'm fired up about this one because we're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty, man. Let's talk training. Let's talk what you're building. Let's talk how you're handling things. But before we get into that too much, let's let people know who Josh is, where you're at, how you got there, and let's run from there, brother.
All right, so pretty unconventional path, to be honest with you, man. Started off playing Division III football up in Indiana, Hanover College. Ended up, we don't really have a strength coach at that level, especially back when I played. So took pride in training and probably doing everything wrong. But absolutely loved the process, invested in it a ton, graduated with a sociology degree. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up and went into coaching football, actually, and found very quickly working at a Division III school that, the need for a strength coach and the way that you're able to make connections and relationships with the athletes. I was coaching D-line, so you get, 12, 15 guys you get a relationship with and kind of the other 70, 80. And then as soon as you hit the weight room, you build a relationship with all 100 of them. So that was huge for me, and decided that was the route I wanted to go. So again, to date myself a little bit, I send out actual hard copy resumes to over 80 Division I schools to look for internships, graduate assistantships, basically anything I could catch. I was not certified at the time, didn't have a degree in any exercise science related activities, so kind of had to throw it to the wind. And I had one callback out of the over 80 resumes I sent out. That was University of Memphis, and had the opportunity to go work with Mike Stark when he was there. So, Coach Stark is one of my mentors, man. He is, we do a lot of things similarly, and we do a lot of things polar opposites. But he's the guy that gave me my shot and gave me the opportunity. Went down there as a GA, and haven't lost my love or my passion, my drive for what I've done. It actually, gets stronger as we go through this process, and just trying to find a better way to take care of these kids. And been here at Wofford now for finishing up my 6th year. So we've got kind of a system in place that we found a lot of success with. Our kids value, our kids, take to, and they're able to make gains and grow through it. So, but that's obviously what we'll get into. But we've changed a lot since we've been here. We've changed a lot in our 6 years, and figuring out what our kids can and can't handle, man, because we are not like anybody else, just like you guys aren't like anybody else, and different genetics, different resource, and different time and place. So that's kind of what we've been able to do to create a system here that our kids have vested in and committed to a ton to make, body changes and development, through their times.
Sensational, man. Let's get right into it then. Let's talk about that system. Let's talk about how you built it. Let's talk about where your ideas came from, and let's talk about where you see it moving to.
Okay, well, to start with, I always give everybody the same thing. They always want to know what our training philosophy is and how we do, and this, that, and the other. We don't have a philosophy per se. Kind of what we look at is we look at a bunch of different principles that we've used to develop how we implement kind of our strategy and our approach, and to take care of our athletes. The biggest ones that we look at were, there are a few other guys that talk about, we're stress managers. And that's kind of how we set the pinnacle for how we want to program, how we design, and how we go about our process. So everything that we look at in terms of high or low CNS stress, and basically develop everything out of that into a vertical integration model. So a lot of our components, a lot of our kind of our base principles and setups will come from the likes of Charlie Francis and James Smith. So I said Mike Stark is a mentor. One of my other big mentors is Tom Myslinski. Milo's down with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he and I crossed paths at the University of Memphis for over a year. And he's the guy that kind of, I had some of my thoughts and beliefs and things I thought I knew, but his exposure based on his relationships with guys like Buddy Morris, guys like Charlie Francis, those guys, it exposed me to a whole nother level of ideology and understanding exactly how to best case scenario for these kids. And, you always have to reflect to find a better way to do it. And that's basically what we've done is we've taken that high-low integration model concept here, and we've evolved it a ton. So, small snippet of that evolution. When we started here, my very first summer, we started 4 days a week. And we went a very basic traditional high day on Monday with intensive run work and lower body lift. And then we'd spend 60 minutes running and 60 minutes lifting. And then we'd take day 2 and we'd do the same thing, but we'd go low CNS and we'd be tempo-based runs with upper body lift. And then we'd basically take Wednesday off, and then we'd repeat that on Thursday and Friday. And what we ended up finding was, because that was a similar model that I had first had exposure to, our kids don't have the work capacity. Our kids don't have the genetic, potential or abilities to actually do those things. So it worked a little bit on the front end, but what we found was as we added complexity to our programming design, and we added, just more nuances and more challenges for them in the training regimen, they couldn't handle it because every day ended up being a high CNS day. And our goal was not to tap into that at all. And everything, per what literature and research gives you, was based around low CNS work, but they weren't able to recover. And the whole idea to me, with the high-low model and the CNS stress management, when we look at those things, the whole idea is recoverability. And what's your availability from day 1 to day 2? That's the challenge, and that's where we've kind of had to be able to restructure our model from a 4-day 2 hours a session. Now we go 6 days. And we never have a session longer than 90 minutes. And those 90-minute sessions are the reserve for when we lift and run combo in the same. And that's more of a 60 minutes run and 30-minute lift.
I love it, dude. I love it because you know what I love the most about this, and this is just me being how I am, is like hearing your learning process is awesome, dude. Like that you came in there and you were like, this is what I think it should be like, and kind of struck out, and we're like, what's going on? How can we make this better? So how is that now continuing to evolve? So like run us through that. Run us through how you're setting this up. Run us through how you're changing things and moving these kids forward, because it sounds like this is definitely far from a mature process, even though you've been there 6 years.
No doubt, no doubt. Still trying to find the better way to do it. So let's take a step back first. Talk about kind of our analyzation of how it wasn't as good as we wanted it to be, because our guys are still. Look, at the end of the day, people say it all the time. There are a lot of ways to skin a cat. No doubt, man. Like getting kids in shape, get kids strong, sure. But to optimize those things, that's the challenge. And what we found early was kids were getting in better shape. They were moving better. They were stronger. They felt better. Injury reduction, so on and so forth. There were a lot of components that were positive. Well, the big one that changed this was the conversation I had with the head football coach at the time. We sat down. He said, hey, how come so-and-so is slower at the end of the season than he is at the beginning of the season? How did he get slow during the season? And you sit there and you go, well, that's not a maladaptation to sprinting. Like, that's not what happened here. What happened is it's just the fatigue accumulation through time and the kids not recovering well and so on and so forth. So that's when it really, really forced us to go back into our model of what we're doing, exactly how much, we're dosing and how much volume and intensity, per session, per event that we're actually looking at. So that's kind of where we were able to track that difference. So now the way we've evolved it's more simple than it was in the beginning, because we've cut some of the layered components out on a day-to-day, because we're going 6 days now. So again, through that vertical integration model where we're continuing to adhere to different concepts throughout, that we never get rid of, plyometric skills. We never get rid of, our basic nuances of training that we're always looking to. Look, if you don't train rate of force development, you're not going to create more power. You know what I'm saying? So it's basic things that we have to always keep integrated with our system. So what we've actually found is we're able to break things up better and more simplistically based, because now the emphasis is a lot more geared toward exhibit A, as opposed to trying to touch A, B, and C today. We know that I don't have to get it today because I've got a session tomorrow. And tomorrow's session may only be 45 minutes, but now we're just able to layer things completely different, So it's gone from, I think we all have a certain element in our thought process where we got to do a lot of things. We need to touch a lot of different modalities and intensities, movement, pattern specific, whatever it is. Okay. But at the end of the day, like for us, it's minimal effective dosage, and it is basic stuff works, period. Because we're not dealing with elite level trying to fine tune this guy to be able to survive the NFL for 10 years. We're still looking at very, very developmental based athletes. We're looking at guys that, when our guys show up here, they don't know how to squat, hinge, push, pull, carry. They don't know how to do those things. So we have to revamp all those qualities. And by doing 6 days, and we can spread it out, we can touch multiple things throughout the week. We've just seen much, much better gains and much better kind of sticking value to those training protocols, more than we have just trying to cram, hey, 2 hours of work. You're going to get better, but you're also going to get tired as hell.
No doubt about it. Now, ton of good stuff in that. A lot of things that we could go after, but you talked about one of them at least 3 times, and that was tired, fatigue, and looking at that. So let's talk about that. How's Josh and the staff looking at the guys down there and making sure that you brought up optimal dose? Like, how do we know we're doing what's best, and we know we're not, overcooking the cake, if you may?
Right. No, and that's been the piece that was kind of the most challenging to figure out exactly how to tag a number onto that, to be able to identify those things. So the first couple of years, honestly, we were going based on kind of what we had done and what we kind of research again in volumes per position, so on and so forth, and what we think guys would actually need. And again, so as we go and we'd adhere to a different process, what we started doing was we actually started going out, and we're out there anyways, but out at football practice and scrimmages, competitions, stuff like that. We have zero technology here. So rather than putting a monitor or a tracker on a kid to be able to get his heart rate and get his running volume, so on and so forth, we're sitting and we're subjectively measuring those things. So what we do is I'm not worried about anything less than we call it 90%. So I know, again, if I go into Charlie's literature and so on and so forth, and a lot of sprint stuff talks about 95%, 100%, no doubt about it. But I don't know how many athletes are really truly working at that 95 threshold and higher. So we use a 90. And it allows us to convey a little bit of a different message, the way that we communicate that to our athletes. Because when we train speed, I'm always going to get off on a tangent here, Jay. But whenever we train speed, when we're looking at those elements, if I can train those guys 90% higher threshold through the entire training session, to me, that's a win. Because what we'll actually do is, let's just say we have 10-yard sprints, okay? If we run 10-yard sprints, I may take the first 3 or 4 and tell them 90%. When I coach 90%, I'm going to coach that kid to be 2 to 3 steps short of full speed. And then we'll run those first 4 reps at 90. Hey, you guys are feeling good. You look good, so on and so forth. Go ahead and take it up to about 92%. Now, that's a half a step faster. Okay, so now we're rep 6, rep 7. Hey, you feeling good? Let's go 95, 97 based on how you feel. I still don't want full bore. I don't want you to turn it loose. Because if I can get 10 sprints at that speed ability to which they can competently handle, it's twofold. One, I reduce injury or rate of injury possibility just based on they don't try to outrun themselves. And as soon as they start to outrun themselves, mechanics go to the wind. They're trying to race each other every rep, and you don't get any value. And then the second part, like I truly believe the way that we train with the high-low and the intensive, extensive, and the way that we recover and replenish in between runs and bouts, so on and so forth, I truly believe that if we play a game at 90% higher throughout the entire game, first quarter to fourth quarter, we're still better than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, and I've seen it time and time again, because those guys that go out there and, they're running a bunch of 40s and short rest and they're trying to replicate a game. Yeah, it works. It works for a period of time. But, my goal is to be able to peak every play, be able to peak through the entire game. And that's the whole idea with sprinting 90 or higher. So, okay, so back into your question, talking about gathering some data and some information. So what we did is we tracked practices. And we would track everything 90% or higher. Okay, so when we track it, I would have a clipboard and I may have the running backs. One of my assistants has another clipboard. They may have DBs or wide receivers. And you're watching a position group. And what you'll do is you'll basically just follow those, handful of athletes around all day. And everything that you watch that looks like a 90% higher perceived effort, then you're going to chart those things. And we've got a sheet. We've got it all broken down now to where they can log all that. And they may take 2 hard steps out of an acceleration, and then that's it. Well, I'm going to log that as a 5-yard sprint because per their exertion, what their output is, I'm going to mark it to that. Now, I'm going to watch a wide receiver run a 40-yard post. Well, I'm going to match that 40-yard post, and if he catches the ball and he continues his run, he may accumulate 70 yards. So I'm going to designate 70 yards. So what we did to first start to understand these things is we would sit there during camp and we would rotate practices and position groups, and we would compile as much information as we needed, as we could get, because basically what we did is we take that and what do we train in the summer for? Well, we train in the summer to prepare ourselves for camp. So if I have all these numbers for camp, then I know what they need to be prepared for in camp. And then camp's going to be that next step that prepares them, specifically for the game. So it's just the GPP to SPP model. But that way we actually have running volumes for them, okay? Now we take that and we started to combine that with post-practice RPEs. We initiated RPEs in the weight room my first couple of years here, and that is a very challenging message to convey to kids to get them to understand things. Because my challenge with it, again, it's probably lack of designation for them as much as anything else. But what we were getting was you may have 2 heavy triples on a squat, and you may ride them at 90%. And they would mark that as a low RPE because they're only getting 6 touches. While that should be a 7-8 as you kind of get into the true RPE. We just did a 1 to 10 scale, just kind of modify and dumb it down. And then what you get was it would be a low, it'd be a kind of low intensity day. It'd be more of an upper body, weak point training accessory based day, but as a lot of volume based, they'd mark that as a high RPE because they'd get a pump out of it. So we'd have a challenge a little bit on the beginning with education and kind of the defining and getting them to understand exactly what the RPE was. But we started to integrate it more out of practice, and conceptually they were able to grasp things more. So we'd take their running volumes and we'd match it up with their post-practice RPEs, and we would start to give that feedback to position coaches and head coach. Hey, and it allowed us to better understand exactly what these guys were taking on and how well they were recovering. And then you just take that and you start to model that at exactly how you program in here and how we design our runs, because at the end of the day, again, like, we're trying to prepare them for that sport. So I can't recreate the sport, but if the closer I can get demand wise and need wise, the better off that they're going to be.
I'm really happy that you said that you had a hard time with the RPE. I thought I was the only one. Like,
No.
dude, like, it's like no matter what, like, those kids, and it's what's great is you're talking football and I'm talking basketball. I could tell you right now, it wouldn't matter if I hit them in the face with a sledgehammer or they took a nap. There was about 8 of them that was just going to say it's a 7.
Yep. 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 And I think that's, it goes back to the education and exactly how we convey that message to them. Because at the end of the day, you want to tell them, like, look, man, today is a 6 RPE day. And then you got guys marking 9s and marking 4s. And at the end of the day, that's what it's for. That's what it's for, to get their rate of perceived exertion. But sometimes you just feel like it's flawed. It's like, there's no way you mark that a 9. Like, you're not even sweating today. And that's where, at the end of the day, you have to trust your kid. You have to trust your kid. And that's where we've grown exponentially from that to now that I do trust our kids when they turn in a post-practice RPE. When they walk up that hill at the end of the day, when I look at them, I can look at their face and say, hey, you're going to give me an 8. I know you are. I know what you did. You didn't have a lot of live reps today. I know you're a 3. So I mean, and it's, the other part that's interesting, and I'm sure that you guys take this on to a certain degree. If a kid fills it out or gives you that answer, the kid right behind him is going to answer the same way.
9 times out of 10, and it blows my mind.
It's like, can you not, like, look, you guys are in your feelings all day long. Come on, man. You've got to give me that individual component of what you're sitting on, man. And it's just crazy. You go, hey, he's an 8. Well, he said an 8. Well, I'm the same position group. I guess I'm a DB, so I should be an 8 too. Come on, man. Where are you at? Did you take the same reps? Did you perform the same thing? Same amount of sleep? Same hydration? No. So that's the challenge, man. And that's what, that's what's wonderful, with all these things and the lack of technology is one thing that I appreciate the heck out of it is it forces our kids to be more conscious. Rather than just getting a statistical readout that says X, Y, or Z, now you actually have to get a kid to understand, hey, that was a 9 practice. Okay, if it was a 9 practice, you better be doing everything in your power to take care of yourself so tomorrow you don't repeat a 9. You give yourself an opportunity to recover a little bit so you feel better. Because if you start packing up these 9s, by the time we hit game 1, you're going to go, I don't have my legs. And you ain't ever going to get those things back. So that's one thing I appreciate about the lack of technology that we have, is because everything that we do is more subjectively measured. And it's kind of like, how do you feel? What do you think?
I love that, dude. And my question to follow up with all of that is, if you ever had the coaches fill that out too.
No, we don't. But that is, so talk about coaches and coaches' influence. Our head football coach has been here for 2 years now. Absolutely love him. Absolutely love him. And the previous head coach, great relationship, phenomenal person, phenomenal football coach. They're just different guys. Okay. So, real fast again, so I don't get off on a tangent. The head football coach came to me a couple weeks ago, and he reads a lot and he tries to understand a lot of things. And I want him to be aware. I don't look, at the end of the day, I don't expect him to understand all the science and the nuance of the hows, the whys, and the whats. But the more aware he is, I think the better off we are. So he comes to me a couple weeks ago and he says something about, hey, how you design all the running and you do the tempo stuff and so on and so forth. He goes, isn't sprinting something like glycolysis, or like, is there something in there? Like, how does that exactly work? So, we had to start breaking down science for him so he understands the hows, whys, and whats. So he understands exactly how his guys get in shape. I love that. I love that about him, that he wants to be aware. So, back to when we started doing our spring football practice this year, we sat down and we looked at, first question is, what's your goal? What's your objective? What do you want to achieve in spring ball? Well, you're not playing a game, so you don't have to be in game shape, so on and so forth. So you go through all these things, and basically at the end of the day, we sat there and we said, we are looking to enhance our tactical and our technical abilities on the football field, period. Like, we don't need to hit a ton. We don't need to see, how well we can play against ourselves. We need to enhance our abilities. So what he started doing was, he's looking at his practice plan. He would break down his periods the same way that we kind of break down our training, in terms of a high period would be, he'd mark them green, and there would be anything that would contain live reps. So again, it's that 90 or higher. And then he'd have a yellow marking for anything that was kind of a tempo based. So that may be individual drills, or some kind of like, working some kind of form or shape, or kind of fit, if you will. So it's more tempo based. So they're able to kind of gain an understanding without being full speed and messing things up. And then they'd have one that was marked red that would basically be a walkthrough, if you will. So he's starting to design and look at practice conceptually the same way we do, with the high CNS stress and kind of where they fall in that threshold of training. Because, again, it goes back to Charlie, and what Charlie talks about, that basically 80 to 95, that 75 to 90 zone. Like, for football wise, we don't need it. We don't need it. And basically it's going to either keep us, it's either going to make us slower, or it's going to take us away from recoverability. And that's the one that we want to try to avoid. So he's been phenomenal as far as kind of trying to be aware of how we build programs and how we design and what we're actually doing to try and match those things up in practice. You can't, we're basically sitting here sharing GPS data and going through all the analytics without having any of that number.
Yeah, and it's your own type of accuracy, because it's your own type of system with your own type of players, and if the proof's in the pudding, like, who cares?
That's it, man. That's it, and that's one of my favorite ones ever is Joe Ken. The Panthers utilize our facilities for their camp, so we have the opportunity to hang out with House for a couple weeks, which is a complete treat. But the big one with that is, he used to talk about, he's like, because we're the same way. Everything that we do is founded in science. So at the end of the day, all of our results come from application. And you could take a perfect program, but if you can't implement it, cue it, coach it, and coerce that thing to give you results, then it doesn't really matter what you put out there. So, that's what House used to always talk about, is basically this technology and what we've switched into. This stuff is awesome. But at the end of the day, it should reaffirm that what you're doing is of accuracy and of value to your athletes.
Yes, because at the end of the day, if we're not providing value for them, then what are we providing at all?
Hard work, sweat, the grind. I don't know.
Yeah,
Elements that I
the
can't.
grind, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's not to dismiss a sport coach ever, but how many times do we sit down with sport coaches and we talk about off-season objectives, goals, training, so on and so forth, and they say we got to get tougher. And you sit there and you go, okay, first of all, not a measurable quality, okay, but if you want me to train toughness, what is that? Is that sweating activities? Is that things that put kids on a health risk of I don't know what that is. So at the end of the day, if we don't have well-founded and logically based program design and implementation, then we're remiss in what we're doing. And that's kind of full circle back to the high-low. That's one of the things that I love about the high-low. It's like me. I am a symmetrically based person. I love balance. And when you look at high-low and you look at those concepts, you're alternating high and low day to day, and you're accommodating your workloads with a high, moderate, and low based on exactly how you're trying to prescribe and make gains, so on, an adaptation that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, that symmetry and that balance in that high-low design, and then again you wrap in that vertical integration. To me, it's beautiful. Like, again, a lot of ways to do it, a lot of ways to get there, but that's just what I have found, for me and the way that I preach it, the way I coach it, the way I understand it, it works the best. And at the end of the day, if you can't define and support what you do, then you're doing it wrong, because you're just doing stuff. It's the idea of this. It's the idea of I love Cal Dietz's writings and the way he goes about things. But anybody else that tries to do triphasic, they're not Cal Dietz, so you're doing some bastardized version of triphasic. It's just like I said at the beginning. It's not a training philosophy. We've tried to adhere to some of the principles with high-low and vertical integration. Am I Charlie Francis or James Smith? Absolutely not. I don't know if I have that envelope for intelligence that those guys had. But at the same time, we're going to use those concepts and we're going to try and utilize that because we use ideas. We use concepts out of the triphasic. We use some time under tension as far as loading goes with some slow eccentrics. Obviously, we do isometrics for some starting strength stuff with our young guys off the front end. So the idea is taking all those concepts and making it yours, and that's, forever indebted to, guys that have helped show and explain the way of doing it this way. It's just what works for us. It just works for us.
1,000%, dude. And just to piggyback one more of those quotes about you don't do it if you're not there, man. That is arguably my favorite line from Big House ever, brother, is you don't train Westside unless you're at Westside.
That's it. That's it. That's it. And again, it goes back to our training principles. We use Westside concepts. We use Westside concepts, but I am not training my guys max effort the way Louis does. Because one, I've never met or spoke with Louis. I've probably read everything that he's ever put out. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I can't recreate what he is because, you watch enough of those videos, he is Westside. And I'm not Westside, but I really enjoy what he has to say and how he goes about his process. And I've seen those things work with our guys. So who am I to, try to recreate that, without, trying to be Louis? Well, it's not. I'm a very simple human being and reading and researching and look, at the end of the day, our kids are guinea pigs to a certain degree. Obviously, we want to be very, very intelligent in that process. But I mean, try some different concepts. I mean, here's one. We did an actual max effort single this spring, really for the first time since I've been here. And with our football student athletes. And I'm not a big max effort guy with a lot of these athletes just because they're too young of lifters. They're too novice lifters. Like, I don't believe that some of these kids can handle, those upper thresholds of what their true strength ability is. And they did a phenomenal job for us. So it's like I tell them, like, you guys show me that you can handle these stressors and these training protocols, then I have no problem adding those things back in. But we're still not max effort. We're still not true max effort program. Because, hey, look at this. You ready? Because I know, again, we all touch it. We all want to do dynamic effort to some capacity. Well, if your kid doesn't move a bar fast with or without a chain or a band or any kind of accommodating load, it doesn't matter. It's not dynamic effort anymore. It's repetition method. And it's submaximal at that. So it's like, we're dealing with kids and we're trying to create max effort, dynamic effort. And it's like, okay, first of all, your max effort really ain't a max and your dynamic effort really ain't fast. So what are you trying to recreate? It's not Westside.
No, it's more just like garbage effort.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. Well, listen, Josh, this is some sensational stuff, brother. Where can people see more about what you guys are doing and how you're putting things together down there?
So we've got two social media outlets. We've got a Twitter handle is at Wofford Strength, all one word. And then we have a Instagram that is at Wofford_strength. My previous assistant that was in charge of both of those things, she took another job. So we are on a little bit of social media hiatus for a few, but we will be back in full. We post a lot of stories on our Instagram. We kind of like to just show snippets of kind of what we take our kids through. We are of the no fluff idea, man. So we don't promote how much kids squat and how much guys bench and all those things. We just try and throw a few snippets out there and just make people aware of what we do. At the end of the day, Jay, don't have the answers to everything. But the idea for us is to be able to promote how we train guys. and how we go through the process. And then, in turn, we got people reaching out to us, asking questions, how, whys, and what's. And I want to be able to share my experiences, knowledge, and education. And do I have all the answers? Not at all. But, we've been doing it and doing it different, and been able to see a lot of gains with our guys.
Awesome, brother. I love it. We'll make sure that we tag all those, and we got those all underneath in the show notes. Josh, this is killer stuff, bro. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on.
Yes, sir, man. Have me, Jay.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, we'll be in touch real soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Sounds good, man. Thank you again.
Yeah. And a huge thanks to Wofford's Josh Medler for spending the time with us today, guys. Dude, I mean, the man is just sitting here telling us, A, what went wrong, B, how they tried to correct it, C, the resources they've utilized to make sure that they're doing the best by their athletes, and D, how they're monitoring and making sure that they are. I don't know how much more open, honest, and candid someone could be than Josh was during this talk. Josh, I can't thank you enough for being so open, honest, and candid with us today and just being so open to sharing. This is absolutely sensational. And guys, make sure you hop on Twitter right now at Wofford Strength and on Instagram at Wofford_strength and give them a follow because they're putting out great stuff, guys. And, they're doing great stuff. So make sure you're giving them some support. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy the talk, please share it to the social media outlet of your choice, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. We are just trying to get the best information out there to all the great coaches that we can. And as always, guys, thank you for everything that you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. We will see you then.